This is a paper note rather than an episode. A preprint appeared 8 days after the series closed. It is directly relevant, and the honest way to handle that is a short supplement rather than a 14th episode, because a series that argued for 13 episodes about not quietly rewriting things should not quietly rewrite itself. So there is no spine here, no lab, and the asset count stays where episode 13 left it. What there is instead, one placement, one correction to our own material, and one reading of the evidence that I think the summaries have got backwards. I should also say what a paper note is not. It is not a verdict on the work, and it is not an endorsement. It is the series reading one paper with the tools the series built, which takes about 9 minutes. What it does, briefly. Agents are held generic, stateless and disposable, and the only object that changes across generations is a curated knowledge base. 3 artifacts, a typed attempt table recording each attempt and its outcome, forum posts turning execution traces into evidence-grounded claims, and distilled bundles compressing what survives into reusable guidance. 3 stages, a task-level forum, a cross-task forum where claims are cited and challenged, and distillation. And the constraint is the experiment. Agents inherit no private memory, no identity, no specialization, no modified prompts. Almost every system in episodes 6 through 8 changed the agent in some way, so a design that changes nothing about it samples a genuinely different point. So the first thing to do is place it. Episode 7 said every self-improving method is one specific triple, a representation, an operator set, and an evaluator. Fill those in. The representation is the typed attempt table, the forum posts and the distilled bundles. The operator set is post, cite, agree, disagree, synthesize, distill. And the evaluator is the benchmark's own tests, the tasks either pass or they do not. It is a point in the space episode 7 defined, not a departure from it. Which is what a framework is for. You can place a new system in one slide instead of one episode. Placing it does not diminish it, occupying an unfilled point in a design space is a contribution. And placing it turns up something in our own material. Episode 8 slide 6 listed 4 editable layers: task code, the scaffold, the improver, the evaluator, and its narration opened by saying the word self-improvement covers 4 very different things. This paper occupies a 5th position. None of the 4 is edited, task code changes per attempt as always, the scaffold is fixed, there is no improver, and the evaluator is the benchmark. What changes is a store outside the agent entirely. That is a correction to our own material, of the same kind as the 5 already on record. Episode 8's argument is unaffected, it is the enumeration that was too narrow, not the claim built on it. Why was that missable? The store was not absent from the series, episodes 2 through 5 are entirely about it, what is written, who owns each operation, how it is addressed, when it expires. The material was there. But a stack that lists 4 layers is claiming there are 4, the narration said so in as many words, and a viewer would reasonably read the list as exhaustive. Which is a failure mode worth naming on its own. A diagram is a claim about completeness whether or not you intended it as one, and enumerations are the easiest place in a series to overclaim without noticing. There is a practical lesson for anyone building a taxonomy slide. If your list might not be exhaustive, either say so on the slide or expect it to be read as though it is, and the second is what happened here. One mechanism deserves a clip, because it is the part the series was already arguing for. Cross-task posts must take an explicit stance, agree, disagree, or synthesize. Watch what happens to a conflict. One claim is narrow to the parameterization that actually failed, and the rest of the hypothesis family survives marked as untried rather than dead. Then watch the case that does not resolve. Both positions are retained with their evidence rather than averaged into a consensus. That is episode 8's archive argument arriving in a different setting, keeping what scored worse because the path forward may run through it. The paper counts the stances, and outright disagreement is rare, which it reads as the intended regime rather than a problem. Now the part 1 think the summaries have backwards. The figure everyone quotes is 43.8 against 37.6 on the terminal benchmark. The paper's own table note says those baseline scores are compiled from another paper's table rather than rerun here, and that the row it beats combines a different, larger proposer model with the same base agent. Meanwhile, for benchmarks where the baselines were rerun under the same protocol get quoted least, and the margins there are larger and the costs lower. The strongest evidence is the least traveled. None of this makes the paper weaker than it is. It makes the summaries weaker than the paper, which is a different failure and the more common one. Which brings the reading I would most want to leave you with. It is usually said that this protocol is execute, discuss, distill, and lacks an independent verification step. That is half right, and the accurate version is more useful. The attempt is externally verified, the tests ran or they did not, which is episode 9's unit test oracle rung and a genuine external signal. But the explanation is not. Why an attempt failed is adjudicated by peers sharing a model with whoever wrote the claim, so on episode 9's criterion the separation is 0. And distillation keeps claims, not traces. Which explains something otherwise puzzling: the bundles transfer across model families, and transferring is a property of structure while being right is a property of content. So what would make it verified? For additions, and none of them is new work. An admission test, for obligations per right with 3 verdicts rather than 2, from episode 9. A provenance record, source, channel, trust level, verdict, validity interval, as a data model a query can filter on, from episode 11. A validity interval, so a distilled claim can expire rather than persisting until something contradicts it, from episode 5. And a verifier outside the loop, something that adjudicates explanations without sharing a model with their authors. All 4 are already in the series. It is a mechanism the series can strengthen rather than a result the series has to accommodate, and those call for different follow-up work. So, what this changes and what it does not. It changes one thing: episode 8's 4 editable layers are not 4, there is a 5th position, and this paper occupies it. That correction goes into the repository through the process episode 13 described. What it does not change: the spine, the 12 labs, the 103 assets, or the argument. A supplement that quietly renumbered the series would have been the exact failure this series spent 13 episodes describing, so it does not. Thank you for watching. If you find an error in any of the 13 episodes or in this note, the repository has an issue template, and a correction with a citation will be applied and credited. That is the whole process, and it is deliberately unglamorous.